I wanted to share today a little bit about grieving, specifically grieving of a marriage that ended, or maybe a long time relationship. And grieving is different for everybody, and it is an intimate process. And I'll just share a little bit about just my own. I remember when my sister asked me how I was doing, and this was 2 weeks after we had completely separated. And I remember telling her that I was angry. I was actually in a state of rage. But that state of rage enabled me to remain functional in a robotic sort of way. It kept me unfeeling and somewhat uncaring. And I told her that I knew that it would eventually subside and I would enter the grieving stage. And I was terrified of it because I knew that it was the darkest, loneliest part of the process. It was having to face a death, and I did not want to have to face it. It is a place where you have to walk through it alone. No one can take the pain. No one can feel it for you. So I wanted to put it out of my mind, and I began to just distract myself and go out, and I began dating. I just wanted to rush through the process and get to the next stage, which would have been acceptance and moving forward. But I realized that I couldn't get to that without walking through the other. And I remember when the rage began to subside and my heart began to soften to the point of feeling compassion and care for my ex-husband. And I didn't want that to happen. It made me feel vulnerable. And I did not want to feel. I wanted to remain angry and hard because I could handle that. So inevitably, I began the process of saying goodbye and burying a dream, an illusion, a friendship. I had to let that go and begin to create for myself a new normal. And we see marriages today that end and we label them as failed marriages. And as if the only thing that qualifies a marriage as being successful is if one partner buries the other. I disagree. I had a successful marriage. For 26 years, we loved each other. We took care of one another. We raised 4 beautiful children. We communicated. We cooked dinners together. We paid bills. We planned a future. We took vacations. We cried. We laughed. We worked out together. We walked. We ran. We were best friends. And we had a successful marriage that came to an end. The failure came in our inability to do certain things right, especially towards the end. However, I see my divorce as an opportunity to work on me, to evaluate myself, not self-criticize, but to see the areas where I thrive and areas where I need to learn and give myself a little more care and a little more time. Rumi said, the wound is the place where the light enters you. Think of light as being wisdom, the wisdom. And so in the middle of that dark place and during that process, I learned a lot about myself and about relationships and marriage and commitment and compromise and about what I wanted and what I would not tolerate. I had a marriage that was easy. It flowed. We fit. It was fluid. We joked. We laughed all the time. I felt safe and I could be myself. And I will not settle for anything less. I had a great marriage. I was married to a wonderful man. And I will not settle for anything less. I will certainly not settle for good enough. And grieving, not everything gets dealt with at once. And it's the brain's job to protect you and to protect you from pain. So there are certain things that it will bury under many layers. And you may feel like you are good, no issues, and suddenly something happens and it triggers a reaction or it triggers an emotion. And it could be something that you thought you may have dealt with and processed through. And you may have, but sometimes we had to revisit a wound. It's just like a physical wound that you may have to go back and take off the dirty dressings and dirty bandages and replace them and clean the wound and be very gentle with it and give it time. It is the same with our soul. When things comes up, even if you think you may have dealt with it, you may need to revisit and go through the process again. And eventually, it will not be an issue anymore. But there's always something that we're working through. The soul. It can be something from your marriage, from your childhood, from maybe the loss of a family member, a trauma, the loss of a business. The soul is always turning things over. And sometimes when you least expect it, something comes up and it's like, oh, wow. I haven't even thought about this, and all of a sudden I'm feeling these emotions, or a certain event or a certain something that someone said trigger a thought and a reaction, and you responded. And grieving may take a while depending on how long you were married, whether you had a good or maybe not a great marriage, whether you had children. And a marriage of many, many years is like two trees that have grown together. And underneath the ground, the root system is intertwined. And it takes a while, and it is very difficult for them to kind of try to redirect, for those roots to begin to grow separate ways. So it takes time. And you have to be patient with yourself, and you have to be patient and understanding with other people who may be going through this. Now, this does not mean that you or this other person is emotionally unavailable. And that is a buzzword that I seem to hear out in the dating world, emotionally unavailable. No, you're just a human that is going through things, and you continue to heal more and more. And hopefully you will find someone who is understanding and loving enough and empathetic and sympathetic and compassionate, and will be willing to walk out this journey with you. And sometimes it is rare to find people like that, but they're out there. So there is life after grieving, and there's definitely a future even after the burying of a dream. There are more dreams. There is more vision. There are more plans to be made. Whether you have grieved a marriage that ended or one that should have ended a long time ago, there's still a lot of living left. There's still a lot of memories to be made. And if your heart's desire is to find a partner for life, know that the one that you're looking for is looking for you. Make yourself ready. Just like I shared in my video about feeling unseen or unnoticed, get yourself ready emotionally and physically. Continue learning. Keep yourself interesting and exciting. Refuse to believe the the midlife labels or the negative self-narratives that you may even be telling yourself. It's a new day, and you are the author of your story, and you can write that story any which way you like. And if I can just say one thing, don't settle for just good enough. You are an amazing person, whether you are a man or a woman. You have lived, you have loved, you have been loved, and you have a story, and you have a history. Find someone who will love you, who will appreciate you, who will walk with you, who will take the journey with you and be understanding. Don't settle for less. Don't settle for good enough. Until next time. Bye-bye.